You have been repeating several times that Russia should repay for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Do you believe Israel should repay for the reconstruction of Gaza?
This video popped up on my feed a few weeks ago, and I thought it was really poignant. I thought that this journalist did a great job. Then I come to find out this week that the journalist was fired for asking this very benign question. I think it's a very fair question to the EU chief spokesperson. Okay, take a listen to this.
You have been repeating several times that Russia should repay for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Do you believe Israel should repay for the reconstruction of Gaza, since they have destroyed almost all the strip and the civilian infrastructures? Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriele. It's definitely an interesting question on which I would not have any comment at this stage.
It is definitely interesting question. I have no comment. She probably does have a comment, but her handlers would also fire her if she happened to open her mouth about this, because there is no way to answer this question without looking like the biggest genocide denier and hypocrite on the face of the earth. Yeah, that makes sense. You know, Ukraine, the EU is saying, Brussels is saying, Ursula von der Leyen is saying, you know, Russia has to pay for the rebuilding of Ukraine. By the way, Russia is doing that. Because, shocker, Russia is taking control of all these territories. Even Trump admits that Russia has control of 80% of the Donbass, over 80% of the Donbass. And guess what they're doing there, you guys? This is crazy. This is crazy, but guess what? Russia is going in and rebuilding all the territory. You know, all of the theaters that were bombed, the hotels that were bombed, the civilian infrastructure that was bombed. People are getting their homes blown up, even in areas that are not too close to the front anymore, and by the Ukrainians, of course. And I visited some of these places, and I said, you know, what do you do now? What happens? And they say, well, we call the authorities, the proper authorities who are governing the region now newly, and they're going to come in and fix the situation, rebuild. So the Russians are coming in and rebuilding. And look, I've been to these areas. I've been to Zaporozhye. I've been to Mariupol. I've been to Berdyansk. I've been to these regions. And what I can tell you is, even the areas that are untouched by the war, like completely untouched by the war, let me tell you, these areas have been untouched since the fall of the Soviet Union. The infrastructure is from the fall of the Soviet Union. All of the universities, you go in and it's like you're teleporting back to the 80s or the 70s in some cases. All of the ports use the ports. You know, we hear so much about how important these ports are. These ports, all of the cranes, all of the infrastructure, it's all from the Soviet Union. Everything is from the Soviet Union. So it was Ukraine who abandoned, it was the Ukrainian government who abandoned this region, this territory. And that goes both sides, both the sides that were willing to work with the Russians and those that were total Brussels pawns, NATO pawns. Every single Ukrainian administration abandoned the people of the Donbass. Russia goes in. When I drove to Mariupol, we drove an hour into Mariupol in the middle of the night from the old border. I must have seen 1,000 construction trucks. I'm not kidding. Not kidding. Not being hyperbolic. Over 1,000 construction trucks working on the highways, working in the city. It was 1 a.m. Past curfew, 1 a.m., we were making our way late into the city, and still there was over 1,000 construction trucks I saw. That's what's going on. So yes, Russia is rebuilding. But to get back to this point, should Israel have to pay for the reconstruction of Gaza? Isn't that such an interesting point that no one talks about? We always hear about these great plans for the reconstruction of Gaza, and it's like Colombia is expected to pay for the construction of Gaza out of the goodness of their heart, and they do have good hearts. Egypt is expected to pay for the construction of Gaza. Saudi Arabia, UAE, they're expected to repay the construction of Gaza. Like, it was Israel. Now, I kind of have some sympathy, actually, to the idea of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE Turkey participating in the funding of rebuilding Gaza, because like it was their complicity, total complicity, that has allowed this to happen for years and years and years, decades and decades, generations and generations. Well, in some cases, okay, you know, they did stuff back in the day, but for the most part, you know, these countries, these Arab states, they've done nothing for all of history, modern history. And it's like, yeah, I kind of feel like maybe they should have to pay. Why is it so bad to say that Israel should have to pay for Gaza? I'm going to play this one more time. He got fired for asking this question this week. He asked it in a very nice way, by the way. He's very polite.
You have been repeating several times that Russia should repay for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Do you believe Israel should repay for the reconstruction of Gaza, since they have destroyed almost all the strip and the civilian infrastructures? Thank you.
Like, he didn't even say genocide. He was trying to be nice. He was trying to respect their rules, you know, their censorship rules. He didn't even say genocide. They still fired him. The EU, by the way, is rolling out a new Ministry of Truth. Yes, you heard that right, because of Russian disinformation attacks and Chinese disinformation attacks. Ursula von der Leyen has announced that they're going to roll out a Ministry of Truth. They have some propaganda name for it to make it sound like it's not some deep state Epstein ministry of silencing the people, but they're rolling this out, and at the same time, they are silencing well-meaning journalists who are asking the simple questions as to what we should all be asking. Why is Israel not expected to pay for reconstructing Gaza if Russia is expected to pay to reconstruct Ukraine? Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.